In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. What an understatement. Generally, Paul doesn't have the gift of understatements, right? He says things pretty solidly and pretty strongly, and sometimes he's very, one would say, overstating, huh? But here he has an understatement today. And I laugh every time I read it because it's so true that we have this need. He says, you have need of a little patience. Yes, we need patience, don't we? We need patience. And there's a way to get patience. There's only one way to get patience. And that's to go through things that make you impatient. That's all. That's the only way. And the reason why that's the case is not because God wishes to punish us or tease us. It's because our sins are passions, which came about because of the fall. And we have to relearn how to be a human being. I tell my flock all the time, probably I've told you guys, we're not yet human. We kind of look human, right? But we're not yet human. Jesus Christ looks human, but he's truly human. Well, this is our goal, to be like Jesus Christ, to be really human. To be really human is to have no passions, to have humility, strength of perseverance, patience, love, have no darkness in us whatsoever. So by that definition, and I assure you that is the Christian definition of what a human being is to be like Christ. We're not yet human, but we're becoming human. Now we have our beautiful children to show us something that we should know is also applicable to us. Children have need of patience, don't they? Children, when they're 2, 1 even maybe, throw temper tantrums, right? They're mad because they can't have this cereal, or they can't go here, or they can't go there, or it's time to leave the playground, or whatever it is. And we try to teach them not to throw temper tantrums for such silly things. And eventually they learn. That is, if, of course, we keep applying ourselves and teaching them and also modeling for them what patience is. But we have need of patience. Now, we don't throw temper tantrums so much, but we have this problem. And the problem is that oftentimes things that we really desire in our heart, or should desire in our heart, but maybe we desire something that's a counterfeit, they seem so far away from us. It seems like it's going to be so long until we reach this goal that we have. And that sin of feeling things are far off and feeling that somehow we're detached in the world, that's really called despondency. It's a lack of faith in God. And the way you have faith in God is, paradoxically, a Christian knows this. The way you have faith in God is through trouble, tribulations. If everything is easy, then you don't have any strength. If there isn't, these trees here are strong. Why are they strong? Because the wind is always blowing. If you were to transplant a tree from some place that has no wind over here, it would break almost immediately. First time there's a 50-mile-an-hour wind or even a 25-mile-an-hour wind, it would break. We become stronger through tribulations. It's just true. It's because of our nature. Jesus Christ went through many tribulations in order to make us stronger. He became a man and did everything that a man would do except sin, and went through persecutions that we cannot even imagine. Not just, of course, the crucifixion, which is obvious, but the daily abuse that he was given. The ones he created were saying obscene things about him every day. Imagine going through that for his 3.5-year ministry, that kind of tribulation. But he was patient, and he endured. So we have to be patient and endure. Not because it's part of a cruel game or anything, but because our nature is just impatient. We see that in children, and we see how they're miserable when they're having a fit about something. Well, we're miserable when we are not patient. So let's look at the epistle to the Hebrews a little bit, which has this understated line, "For ye have need of patience," in it, and see what we can learn from it. It's really a glorious selection And it's truly the good news. So he says, but call to remembrance the former days in which after ye were illuminated, ye endured a great fight of afflictions. So illuminated means baptized. We really should use that term more often. We really should understand that being baptized is not just a perfunctionary thing. It's where a person completely changes. You go into the water dead, and you come out of the water new, a new creature, able to be alive, able to be perfected. But immediately after the baptism, there will be persecutions, there will be difficulties. What did the Lord do right after his baptism? In the Gospel of Mark, it's very particularly, he uses this particular phrase. And immediately he went into the desert to be tempted by the devil. The water wasn't even dry in his hair, and he was going off to the desert to be tempted for the 40 days. Fast for 40 days, and then at the end of the 40 days, when he was in a weakened state physically, the devil came to tempt him. So this is how it is with us. We might not see immediate temptations after baptism, but there will be difficulties. There's always difficulties in life. And there are always afflictions. Now he goes on to say something. These people had such afflictions that they had their things stolen. They were being persecuted. They were being killed. They were being put in prison, tortured. So it was a bad situation for these people. And he said, for ye had compassion on me and my bonds, because he was in prison at the time, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing that in yourselves ye have in heaven a better and more enduring substance. Now we all know that's true intellectually, right? We all know that everything's better in heaven, that anything here doesn't compare to heaven. Well, why don't we act like it? Why is that? Why is it that we have grief when we lose something, when we have to take a downturn in business or something of that nature? Why is it? Because we're attached to the world. To the extent we're attached to the world, which is going to die, it's all going to go away, we are impatient about the next one. And we don't see the glory that God has in mind for us, that he had in mind even before we were created. So this is quite a tall goal for us, to take joyfully the spoiling of our goods. Might be too hard for us, but perhaps we can, in some other ways, take joyfully the spoiling of our goods. Let's use that metaphorically. So when someone wastes your time, when someone is unfair to you, when someone lies to you, when something unpleasant to you happens, which is the cause of someone's deceit, or even when it's just unpleasant to you that someone cuts you off in traffic, you should take joyfully those things. Now, the only way to take joyfully all those things, it's not just by force of will saying, well, I'm supposed to, it's a law. God said I've got to be patient about these things. I'm going to be patient no matter what. That's not possible. The way you take these things joyfully is to feel God. Now that's a tall order. That's a difficult thing. A lot of people don't feel God. And I think it's partially due to our sort of transactional understanding of God. I call him the volcano God, that God that people have transactions with. That volcano God, you have to sacrifice something to the volcano God, or else the volcano God won't let you have crops, or will cause your firstborn to die, or something of that nature. And Christians, a lot of them still believe in the volcano God, because there's sort of a transactional thing. I've got to be good, and because I'll be good, God will be good to me. Well, God is always good to you, whether you're good or bad. But his idea of what is good is different than your idea of what is good. A lot of times our idea of what is good is in the here and now. God's idea of what is good is for you to become like him and to become absolutely perfected, so that you will be in union with him. That's his idea of good. So whatever helps to that end, that's good. And that includes things that make you impatient. That includes things that humiliate you. By the way, does anybody ever pray for humility? you do, whether you know it or not, if you say any of the prayers in the prayer book, that's a dangerous prayer. God will answer that prayer. He will. He will cause you to be humiliated so that you can learn humility. That's just the way it is. How do our children learn? They learn the hard way. Which one of us learned the easy way? Which one of us, as a teenager, just did everything our parents told us? And we're never, doing stupid stuff. Some stuff that got us kind of in trouble, right? Come on. Every single one of us. And our children, we see with our children, they do things that are foolish, and then it hurts them. Well, we do things that are foolish too. And the foolish things are that we have the wrong priorities. And really, it all boils down to, do you pray? Prayer in fasting is just critical. Because when you have a relationship with someone, you want to talk to them. And you want to hear them talk to you. If we have a relationship with God, then we would want to talk to him and hear him talk to us. Now, in rare circumstances, do we hear him talk? Most of the time, we would want to reject all of those if we hear things. But God touches us in the heart, and we feel him. Why am I coming here? I'm coming here because my heart has been told to do it. I can't tell you how, but I know it's happened. Therefore, I keep coming here. It's obedience. I have to do it because God told me to. And if you would say, how do you know God told me to? I just say, I know. Because I don't just go willy-nilly every day saying, God told me to do this, God told me to do that. To me, that's just usually a sign of some sort of mental illness when people think God is talking to them about everything. But about big things, God will lead you to know what it is that you should do. So he goes on to say, cast not away your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. Cast not away your confidence. What an interesting turn of phrase, huh? So when you see something that causes cognitive dissonance, you want to go a certain way, you know what's the right way, but you're going the wrong way, the things are not working out as they should, then it's easy to say, well, I knew it. It's not going to work. Well, that might be the case in a business venture or something or other. Might be a good idea to abandon a failed business venture. But it's not a good idea to abandon the doing of good, not being weary in doing good, and having bad things happen to you, even as you do good. Because that's the way life is. It just happens that way. And it happens that way because of the sin. The world is full of sin. There's a great price to pay, if you want to put it that way. That's probably the wrong way to say exactly, because that sounds transactional. There are repercussions to having free will. When you have free will, you can choose one way or the other. Now, if God gives you free will, but then doesn't allow you to choose, you don't have free will. But God gave us free will. We were made in his image, which includes having the freedom to choose. The freedom to desire what we want to desire and to try to accomplish whatever we want to desire. We have that ability, just as God has that ability. Now, the problem is, when we desire things that are bad, then our relationship with God breaks down. Not because he leaves us, he never leaves us, but because we become dull. And as I've said before, sin makes you stupid. You just become dumb. And you don't see things that are right in front of you. And then you feel lost. And then there's a temptation to cast away your confidence. Say, it's not going to happen that way. Like somebody would say, well, I never win anything. Why would I ever buy a lottery ticket? I never win anything. Yeah. I don't think you should buy lottery tickets in general, but not because you feel like I never win anything. What an attitude. If we have that kind of attitude about our spiritual life, then, well, we never win anything. We never feel God moving in our heart. So he said, cast not away your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. And then immediately he says, for you have need of patience. I still laugh every time I read that. It's just so, it's funny to me how true that is and how softly stated he says it. You have need of patience. It's so true, isn't it? If we can only be patient. That's one of the prayers, by the way, that's in the prayer of St. Ephraim. Because we need patience. So we just keep going. That patience that keeps believing. Now, you keep believing not because you're sitting in a corner trying to believe. That's impossible to do. You keep believing because you're active. You're active in your prayer, your fasting, your kindness to others, especially those who are not kind to you. Learning to button your lip when you feel like talking about something that you shouldn't talk about. All the rest. And when you're active, there's something that happens in the heart. The heart opens up. Just a crack. And God's light, which is right there at the heart, comes in and illuminates a certain part of your heart. And that darkness is no longer dark. And then you feel God in your heart. And then you do a little bit more. And you feel God in your heart. And the process repeats over and over again until finally our heart is completely illuminated with God. And then we don't care about anything that's evil. We only want to do good. Now, that would be at the end of our life, or perhaps for most of us, that'll be for us in eternity. We won't really get there by the end of our natural human life, our temporal human life. But if we struggle, then God will magnify our struggle, just like we do with our children. When our children do something partially well, right? Let's say they're disobedient, and we tell them they have to pick up, right? And so they pick up, but we help them pick up, because otherwise it'll never get done, right? Of course, we're modeling for them, but also we got to get the floor picked up, because otherwise there's going to be Legos everywhere. And so they're being obedient, but probably, a little bit grudgingly, etc. But we should be cheerfully picking up with them. And then they're learning something. They're learning to be more patient. So that's what God is doing with us. Shall we say, we have a mess of Legos and we got to pick them up. And who wants to pick up a bunch of Legos? I don't like to do it. So he says, how you have little need of patience, that after you've done the will of God, you might receive the promise. For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come, and will not tarry. A little while. Does it seem like a little while? I think for those who are illuminated, it seems like a little while. For those of us, all of us, who are not so illuminated, things seem like they take a long time. We kind of wonder, why is this thing happening? Why is this happening in the world, etc., etc.? Why is this happening in my family, etc.? Because we're impatient. But really, it is a little while. We're only going to live a little while. My parents-in-law live with me, and they're 84, I think. And they're really pretty feeble. I'm 65. In 20 years I could be like that. Think about what you were like when you were 20. You were on top of the world, right? I mean, you thought you could do anything, lift any weight, and run any distance, and at least guys are like that, And I had no idea what was ahead of me. Hadn't gotten married yet. I hadn't experienced all those things that you experience when you raise a child. Certainly I wasn't Orthodox yet. I was about to be soon. All the things that I went through, and that I had no idea what was going to happen when I was 20. The difference between 20 and 40 is amazing. Well, I'm 65. 20 years, I'll be 85, like they are. I mean, if I make it to 85. So there's only a little while for me left on this earth. But there was only a little while when I was 20. But I didn't look at it that way, and you probably didn't either. But it really is just a little while. And that's good news. Because when you know it's a little while, you can endure something, Like if you're on a long journey and you know that it's only another mile to go, you can walk that mile, even if it's cold, even if your feet hurt. But if you don't know how much farther it is to go, every step seems like an eternity. Well, we know where we're going, and we know it's only a little while. And the Lord will come. He's not going to tarry. God will help us. We just have a little need of patience. So the next time, which is today, by the way, that you have trouble with patience, I'm not talking about trouble with patience because, you drop a class or something like that. I don't mean that kind of patience. But when you have trouble with just a little bit of faint-heartedness, just try to summon your powers a little bit and realize it's only a little while. And this need of patience that you have, God's going to fulfill it. And if you're praying the prayer of St. Ephraim every day, like I told you to, you're praying for patience twice a day with a prostration. And God will answer that prayer. And then eventually you won't have any need of patience because you'll have God in your heart. It's the whole point of life. God bless you and help you in all things.